Mythical Island, the new mini set for Pokemon TCG Pocket, has been out for a little over a week now. Some cards have completely changed the meta. I've played a ton of games with multiple different decks to see what cards are making a big impact on the game. And I've put together a little top 10, maybe a little more, list of which cards you should be going for if you want to rack up those wins for the new emblem event. Before we start, I just want to say this is actually my first ever video on YouTube, hence the less than stellar audio quality. But don't worry, I plan to get this straightened out in the coming days. Just going to keep learning and getting better. But it would be great if you could like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. It really helps me out. Okay, number 10. This card can be incredible if played at the right time, but you have to master the timing. Number 10 is Blue, which is a supporter card that reduces the amount of damage taken from your opponent's attacks by 10 the next turn. Since it's a supporter, it cannot be played on the same turn as cards like Sabrina or Professor's Research. If you know your opponent has the exact amount of damage necessary to take out your active Pokemon, or with Giovanni take out your active Pokemon, you can play Blue ahead of time to save your active Pokemon, allowing you to either set up your backline or to get off one more attack before you lose your active Pokemon. And this could be a complete game changer late game or even early game. Blue is only number 10 because it requires a ton of preemptive thinking. It requires your opponent to have the exact amount of damage necessary to take out your active Pokemon, and it is also a supporter preventing you from playing other supporter cards that round. But it is very powerful if played at the right time, so definitely have it in your rotation. Number 9 is going to be the first Pokemon on our list, and it is a great addition to any water type deck. One of the internet's favorite evolutions, Vaporeon. Vaporeon makes the list because of its ability Washout, which states as often as you like during your turn, you may move a water energy from one of your benched water Pokemon to your active water Pokemon. This allows you to manipulate where your water energy goes every turn. You can set up a Pokemon in your backline, or you can even slot Vaporeon into the active spot and put the water energy on Vaporeon, allowing it to do 60 damage with Wave Splash for just 3 energy, and Vaporeon has 120 HP, making it a significant tanky Pokemon as well. Pair Vaporeon up with cards like Articuno EX or Gyarados EX to really get those cards going. Don't forget to include Misty in your Vaporeon decks as well to enable you to get even more energy moving across the battlefield. The downside of Vaporeon is it doesn't hit very hard, 60 damage isn't that much, and you need to evolve it from an Eevee. Number 8 is actually 2 cards, and they're 2 cards that already had variations in Genetic Apex. The new Ponyta and Rapidash are significant improvements on your Blaine decks. Ponyta has 60 HP and does a 1 energy move called Stomp, which does 10 damage normally, but if you flip a coin and it lands on heads, it actually does 40. It only has 1 retreat cost, making it easy to pull back into your backline. Rapidash is the evolution of Ponyta. It has 100 HP, has a 2 energy costing attack called Rising Lunge, which does 40 damage, but if you flip a coin and it lands on heads, it does 100 damage. You pair Rapidash with Blaine, that adds another 30 damage on top of it. And this total damage number of 130 is very important. Why? Because it allows Blaine decks to deal with 3 very important cards. First, Pikachu EX, which has 120 HP. Second, Starmie EX, which is a huge counter to Blaine decks, which has 130 HP. And third, Celebi EX, which has 130 HP, and it is a huge card in the current meta. Rapidash also only has 1 retreat cost, allowing you to either use one of the energies attached to it or an X speed to put it back on your bench, enabling you to set its move back up the next turn with the energy provided in your next turn. And in my opinion, the Rapidash art is arguably one of the best ones in Mythical Island. But there are a few downsides to Rapidash, one being that it's heavily reliant on a coin flip. 2, that it only has 100 HP, setting it up to get 1 hit by a Celebi that lands heads twice, and also there are a ton of water decks currently in the meta. So far, the list has included a water Pokemon and a fire Pokemon. so it only makes sense that the next Pokemon would be a grass type. Number 7 is the Superior line, and what makes this line so strong is that it pairs very well with other grass cards. Let's start with the first card, Snivy, which is a basic Pokemon that does 40 damage with Vine Whip for 2 energy costs and has a respectable 70 HP. Snivy's evolution Servine has pretty mediocre upgrades compared to Snivy. You only get 10 more HP and 10 more damage for the same move and same energy cost. But the star of the show is Superior, which, once fully evolved, provides the ability Jungle Totem, in which each grass energy attached to your grass Pokemon actually provides 2 energy instead of 1. This ability is incredibly useful for powering up Pokemon like Celebi EX, Venusaur EX, the new Executor from Mythical Island, and also the new Delmise from Mythical Island. A few downsides to Superior, one being it is a Stage 2 Pokemon requiring you to evolve it twice, which can be hard to generate consistently every game. Second is it's not a very strong attacker, so if you need to attack with it, it's not going to be doing too much damage. Third being that Fire decks can essentially one-shot Superior with Pokemon like Arcanine EX and Charizard EX, and Blaine is a real problem for Superior. But pair this Pokemon with Celebi and you are going to rack up the wins quickly. Number 6 is my favorite card to play at the moment, and that is Scolipede. Scolipede is arguably the strongest Dark-type Pokemon in the game currently. Scolipede is a Stage 2 Pokemon, so it's important to talk about the first 2 cards in its line. Venipede is pretty weak at only 60 HP and only doing 20 damage with its attack. Luckily, it only costs 1 energy. But when it evolves into Whirlipede, it becomes much better. It has 90 HP, still only 1 energy attack. This one's called Poison Sting. It does 20 damage again, but it poisons the opponent's Pokemon, causing it to receive 10 extra damage each turn. This is important because when you evolve Whirlipede into Scolipede, and the opponent's Pokemon is already poisoned, Scolipede's attack, Venoshock, goes from 70 damage to 120 damage. This 120 damage gets the added benefit of the 10 damage taken from the poison effect, hitting that very important threshold of 130 damage. Combined with the 20 damage that Whirlipede did while applying Poison Sting, you're now at 150 damage. These 2 markers are enough to take out very important Pokemon in the current meta, like Pikachu, Celebi, Arcanine, and Mewtwo. Scolipede also gets a extra 20 damage applied to Psychic Pokemon like Mewtwo EX. Pairing Scolipede up with Weezing is incredibly important in this deck. You evolve your Coughing into your Weezing, use your Weezing's active ability to poison the opponent's Pokemon. You then Koga the Weezing out into your hand and slot the Scolipede into your active position, allowing you to do the extra 120 damage from Venoshock. Put your Coughing back onto your bench before you attack, then the next turn you can evolve it back into your Weezing, and you can leaf the Scolipede out of the active spot onto your bench and put the Weezing back into your active spot, applying that poison effect again and either using a second Koga or letting your Weezing wall off for your Scolipede to then come in and clean up with its poison activated Venoshock. This deck is a lot of fun because of the whole Weezing Koga mechanic. It also counters the most used deck in the current meta, which is Mewtwo EX, and there are no EX cards in this deck. So anytime one of your Pokemon is taken out by your opponent, they only receive 1 point. There are a couple downsides to the Scolipede deck. One, Venipede is very weak, so it's susceptible to be taken out before you can evolve it. And it's also a Stage 2 Pokemon, so it takes some time to get it going. That, and it also relies on the poison mechanic to really take advantage of Scolipede's Venoshock. Number 5 is a card that can be added to almost any deck, and is the mascot to the Mythical Island set. Mew EX comes in at number 5 on this list because it's so versatile. It doesn't require any specific type of energy to use its attack, it just requires 3 of them. Genome hacking is so good because you can choose one of your opponent's attacks and use it against them. This card is also a basic card, so you can pull it using a Pokeball. The downside to Mew EX is that it is an EX card, so when your opponent takes it out, they win 2 points. And since it only has 130 HP, it's a little fragile for an EX card. Regardless, its benefits usually outweigh its negatives, but make sure to pair it with Budding Expeditioner, which can pull the Mew EX from your active slot back into your hand. Number 4 on this list is one of the hottest cards in the meta right now, and for good reason. Celebi EX is another 130 HP EX card, but it also has one of the highest damage potentials in the game. For 2 energy, Powerful Bloom allows you to flip 2 coins, and for each heads, you do 50 damage. However, it's not capped at only 2 coins. If you add more energy, you get to flip more coins. If you have 10 energy attached to Celebi, you get to flip 10 coins. For each heads, 50 damage. When you pair Celebi with Superior, or number 7 on this list, each energy attached to Celebi counts twice. So if you have 2 energy on Celebi, you actually get to flip 4 coins. Each head's doing 50 damage. The downside to Celebi EX is, again, it's only 130 HP for an EX card, and on top of that, you're heavily reliant on building Superior and flipping heads. If you flip tails, then you're not going to do any damage. Number 3 on this list is a supporter card that can be put into almost any deck. Leaf, plain and simple, solves a problem. If you have a Pokemon out in your active spot that has a high retreat cost, well, Leaf reduces that by 2, allowing you to preserve the energy that you've attached to your active Pokemon while bringing them to the bench. Prior to Leaf being introduced, decks that had Pokemon with only 1 or 0 retreat cost were at a significant advantage. Decks that utilize a wall Pokemon that are out there to take damage while you build up your bench now have the ability to retreat that Pokemon and save a point. The only downside to Leaf is that it's a supporter card and you can only play 1 per turn. Number 2 on this list is a Pokemon that's been a fan favorite since the late 90s. Gyarados EX is a beast. It has 180 HP and its attack, Rampaging Whirlpool, does 140 damage. But for this beast to even see the battlefield, you first have to level up your Magikarp, which is honestly probably the worst card in the game. It has 30 HP, and its attack doesn't do any damage. In fact, all it does is remove it from the active spot, and if you don't have any other bench Pokemon out, it does absolutely nothing. But once evolved, Gyarados EX has the ability to take a bunch of hits and also deal out a ton of damage. But once evolved, Gyarados has the ability to take a couple hits and also one-shot a ton of EX cards like Pikachu, Articuno, Starmie, Moltres, Arcanine, Mew, Celebi. It can also one-shot a Mewtwo with Giovanni. Pair him up with 1 or 2 Greninja lines on the bench, and your opponent is in for a rough time. Gyarados' attack does remove 1 energy from the battlefield, whether it be yours or your opponent's, and because his attack requires 4 energy, a lot of the times it is yours, so it can definitely put a stop to your energy production, but it could also do the same to your opponent. So Gyarados does have some downsides, right? The Magikarp can be taken out very easily in the beginning of the game, and it does take a lot of energy to power him up. And if you get caught on the wrong side of the energy removal from Rampaging Whirlpool, you're pretty much stuck with just Gyarados and not really powering up any of your other Pokemon. But those downsides are definitely worth the risk when it comes to Gyarados, because when he is up, he's taking almost everything out, and he's able to withstand some of the hits that he'll receive as well. Before we get to number 1 on my rankings, a couple of honorable mentions. And since this video has gone on long enough, I will try to keep this section short. First is Marshadow. It's a cool Pokemon to add to any fighting deck. Only costs 2 energy to power up. Does 40 damage, but if you recently had a Pokemon be taken out by your opponent, it will do an extra 60. It's a great card to have at the end of the game to just come in and do a quick 100 damage on the opponent's active Pokemon. Next is Pidgeot EX. It is a stage 2 Pokemon, so it takes some time to power up, but it does have 170 HP, so it's pretty bulky. Its attack only requires 3 energy, which are not type dependent. It does 80 damage, but if your opponent has any benched Pokemon, it does 20 more damage for each one of them. This is great to use against decks that rely on having a filled bench. Next is Tauros, has 100 HP. Its attack does 40 damage unless it's an EX card that you're attacking. Then you'll do a bonus 80 damage. We also have the Pokemon Flute, which allows you to put a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile onto their bench. It's an item card, so you can use it in conjunction with Sabrina to get an easy point. Mythical Slab is a great addition to any Psychic deck. It lets you look at the top card of your deck, and if it's a Psychic Pokemon, you can pull it. And now the moment you've all been waiting over 15 minutes for. The number one card on our ranking list is Druddigon. This card is the best. It is so strong in the right deck. Why? Well, it's the perfect wall. It has 100 HP, allowing it to last in the very early stages of the game for a little while, and its ability Rough Skin damages the opponent's Pokemon with 20 damage every time they attack Druddigon. So you can just put Druddigon in your active slot, not put any energy on it, and it will still do damage if your opponent decides to attack it. Then, when you're ready to put one of your bench Pokemon in the active slot, just throw a leaf out there. It comes back without applying any energy to it, and your active Pokemon is set up against a weakened opponent's Pokemon. There should honestly never be a time where you use its attack Dragon Claw, because your deck should never have both fire and water energy. Just let Druddigon hang out in the active spot, be your wall, still do damage, and then when you're ready, after you've built up your bench Pokemon, swap them out and go in for the win. Druddigon is number one on this ranking because of how good he is in his role. And in any deck that requires a wall to enable your bench to be built up, he's the best one at it. Well, there you have it, guys. That's my top 10 rankings for best cards in Mythical Island expansion pack for Pokemon TCG Pocket. I can't wait till the next set that comes out in January. I expect to do another video like this. Hopefully it'll be not as long as this one because I'll have a little bit more practice under my belt. Again, this is my first YouTube video, but because it's my first, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help out with the algorithm and stuff. So yeah, thanks for watching and tune in for the next video.